Chapter 23. Breakfast came hot and honest. Bowls of egg with peppers folded in. Bread with a crust that gave under my thumb. A pot of coffee dense enough to stand a spoon. I ate like a boy my age who had not been allowed to be a boy for years and was trying to make up the difference. When I looked up, they were looking at me with the kind of patience that makes you feel either safe or foolish. "Why are you being nice to me?" I asked, plain figuring now was as good a time as any. Jas almost choked on his bread. "Because you look like you could use it?" He tried. Mara spared him. "Because we've been looking for a sixth," she said. "For months." Talon nodded. "We can run a loop with 5, he said. "We've done it. We don't like doing it. We've got holes and that means we can't progress." "What holes?" I asked. "Synergistic damage," Mina said. As if that explained it all. Mara ticked off hands. "We're balanced on paper," she said. "But balance only gets you to the door. Nara's a corsair, synergy path. I am a shaman wielding enhancements with a natural bend. Talon's a straight-up blade and board guardian. Mina's a spear Valkyrie. Jas Blaze retire Ias, nets and control. 5 good tools, we have 2 off-healers covering medical concerns and even Nara can be a tertiary healer if needed. With Nara handling dedicated buffs and with my buffs as well we are pretty well rounded. What we need is a jack of all trades, a conductor with an edge to pull it all together." "Bard," Jas said, grinning, as if he had pulled my class out of a hat. "Discordant of all things." "That's rare?" I asked. "Rare is a sensible sponsor." Nara's eyes were on mine. "Most bards learn to make nice songs. Taverns. Marching pace. A little courage in the legs. Your class reads backwards. Debuffs. Suppression. Noise that cuts." I let that sit. "And you're sure you want that near you?" "We want it pointed the right way," Talon said. "Which is not at us." "I don't know the right way, it's always been chaos and intuition," I said. "You'll learn," Mina said. "We'll test it. If it works, we add it to the plan." Jas leaned in. "We've got a plan," he whispered. "Mines of Falmore. Tiered. Heat risk, gas pockets, monster burrows. Nothing too wild by itself, but the place stacks problems until a group without proper preparation finds itself at the end of their rope. With you on board we can stop dilly-dallying with little loop runs and strike into the big leagues." "I don't think I am a piece of that plan," I said. Mara responded, "The routes set. We are only asking you to take rear. If it changes, I'll say." I ate and thought about it. The idea of being wanted for a thing other than dying in the right place felt like a wrongness in the ribs. They watched me think and didn't press. "What is a corsair, synergy path?" I asked Nara. I had guessed from the way they moved and from the hunting skill they showed in the bush. "I carry rolls. On my count I call 1, aim, speed, guard, focus. You'll feel it hit, 30 seconds of help. I can keep 2 up at once. If I double up I can push a stronger version, but if it busts, that slot's dead for a minute. I also throw black rolls at the enemy, their aim slips, cast slow, stamina drains. Heals? Not a medic. I've got a drift mend, thin line, small ticks while we're moving. It keeps you upright long enough for Mara's touch or a pushin'. What about the crowd control you hit me with? Nets, bolas, tripwires. Smoke bomb that breaks line of sight. A silence powder for casters. What if I say no? Then we eat together and you walk your way," Talon said. "We're not buying you," he laughed. Mina looked at me directly. "Sure as even," she said. 10% to a common kit pool. We don't borrow from each other. You keep your own gear clean. You can peel off whenever you want." "No debt," I said. "No debt," Mara answered. We continued eating in thought. The tavern carried on around us. A lens above the bar swiveled a little. That's when I noticed the plates on the walls and the screens tucked under beams, glass showing moving pictures. Some panned slow. Some jumped. Numbers ticked in corners. A crawl of words under each square gave names and zones. "What's that?" I asked. "Dungeon Reach Live," Jas said, bright again. "Streams. Parties carry recorders. The note routes their run to civic plates and to the network. People love to watch, sometimes they even tip. Some streamers make their whole income from a service like Dungeon Reach Live. Sometimes it covers for a whole burial," Mina said grimly. Mara wiped her thumb on a napkin. "Solar corned as bundles, lens, mount, rise hail spool, overlay rights," she said. "Riven Dawn Manufacturing fits the teams with hard-to-get mounts and gear." "I don't want to be watched," I said. "You don't have to go live," Talon said. "Local record helps with claims and disputes. Vernith likes records. Liv casts spring credits if you can take chat yelling bad advice at you while you work. Jas kept it to the point. Overlay is useful even if you never broadcast, he said. Vitals at the edge of your sight. Facing cones. Nara's marks. 2 blinks left to bring it up, again to kill it. I blinked. A thin pane slid into the corner of my sight. The world stayed the world, behind it a grid laid itself out. Thumbnails. Titles. A crew in the teeth edging a ledge. A lone bow working the step. 3 under lanterns in water to the knee, ropes overhead to keep packs dry. Their breath smoked. The chat along the side twitched. Little icons bumped when someone sent coin. I blinked out the sound and scrolled to another feed. A flagged thumbnail in red, content warning. A forearm blistered where a tendril had stuck. I didn't open it. Gruesome, Jas said, watching my face. We don't put kids near the plates or let them on the feed back home. You get used to it if you let yourself. I don't plan to, I said. You don't have to, Mara said. We use it for proof and for money. Nothing else. 2 lenses above a corner table swung with a party's laughter as their sled cleared a drift. Tips popped in the feed behind my eyes, then settled. The room kept moving. You live with this, I said. Some do, Mina said. Some don't. In rooms like this, it's part of the draw. People point and argue about tactics and then go back to their day. And pay for the show. Credit's credit, Talon said. If a tip buys me better kit, I won't refuse it. Jas leaned in. We'll kit you later, he said. No debt. The team pools to cover it now, your next claim settles it. No fees. Nara turned their cup. You asked about kindness, they said. We wanted to go farther on Dungeon Reach than we've gone before and come back. We'll be honest about that. You look like someone who could do the same type of work. That's the whole of it. What if you're wrong, I said. Then we're wrong, Nara said. We've been wrong before. We learned. Mina glanced toward the door. Do you have any better plans for today? She asked jokingly. Eat, I said. Learn. See the mine mouth then decide if I am staying. Good, Jas said around a mouthful. Food first plans always work. He was smiling when Mara slid a folded slip into my mind. Party charter, she said. Sign and you're in. Don't and you're still at our table. The node-forced chorus rose in my mind. Clean letters. Provisional member, settlements. Share 1/6. Hazard pool 10%. Claims equal. Debt none. Exit any time. No hooks hid in the edges. I let it sit. We crossed to Verneth General Supplies. Invisible bells ticked with sound when we walked in. Tools on the wall were hung straight. How much? I asked. Recorder lens is 12, the clerk said. Shoulder mount 2. Collar mic 1. 15 total. 15, Talon said. We'll take them. These don't broadcast, do they? I asked. Live is just a toggle. You can leave it off. Local record works for claims either way. Leave it off, I said. Don't worry, that is up to you. The merchant said. He rang it up. Talon paid. The clerk fitted the mount to my strap, seated the lens, clipped the mic, and ran a short test. Local record is on by default, he said. If you ever switch to live, tips route through your tag. There's a small civic skim. You can mute chat or hide it altogether. I'll keep it off, I said. Then you're set. Plates on the civic wall played streams the way a fountain plays water, constant, unbothered by who looked. A class passed and none of the children raised their heads. They had grown where strangers die on glass and their parents call it work, and the first inklings began to form a thought I had hoped never to have again. Is this a crow city? Did that make me one? The town moved around the screens without slowing. I watched a feed labeled Falmore North Access, crews moving sleds, yellow banded coats, a count in the corner showing a small delay. That's the dungeon descent we will start with, Mara said. You said dungeons yesterday, I said. It's in the planet's name, tell it to me like I'm stupid. You're not stupid, she said. You're new. The Falmore mines are a spread of old tunnels maintained by the Rysel network. People work them for heat-aligned sacks, glass vein salvage, and some metals. There are 3 main entrances near Grey Step. We'll look at the north one first. Mina took it from there. Up top you'll find fire ants, things that crackle and burn skin if you give them time. Mud pockets that bubble and suck off boots. Nothing too fancy. As you descend it gets harder. From what we hear, mid-level is where it turns. Lava mites that chew through stone with lava-hot spittle, and they hone in on moisture and sweat. There are gas pockets and vents that spit steam that will boil someone alive. But it's mostly accessible. Deeper than that is old drift, mostly abandoned runs where slag cooled and left hollows. The Raisel network maintains it so we don't have to expand the mines. Retkin, a semi-feral race of natives that worship the network, live down there. 2 legs. Hands. Not smart like people, but mean, and they like to pack up and swarm adventurers for their gear and supplies. Mara leaned in, not to lecture but to make sure I caught it. Couple of simple things so we move the same way, she said. Call your verse before you sing it. Just the name. That lets us brace or make space. If I say hold, finish the breath you're on and stop, no shame in cutting a song early if the field changes. Tallin added, easy as a nod, work off my right shoulder unless I tell you different. I set my weight on the left. If I shift you'll hear it, I stomp twice and it clanks my armor. That means I'm locking down. Don't cross in front of me then, I'll pin what's in front and you'll have room to work. Mina tapped her spear butt twice on the floor. And when I call hook, I'm pulling a monster to us. Keep your hands clear of the line and don't chase it. I'll park them where you can reach. If I call lift, I'm dragging a friend out, give me your lane. Nara's voice stayed calm. You'll hear me count now and then. It's just timing for short buffs and short banes. If I'm going 3, 2, 1, try to land your verse on the 1. If you can, it's best to sync skills. Jas raised a hand as if he were in class. And if I shout down, just duck. I don't want to bag you, and you don't want to test how sharp the net's weights are. Mara smiled. A few more you'll pick up quick. Reset means we back up to our last camp and breathe. Blind means eyes down, flash, steam, or grit. When it gets noisy, hands help, 1 hand up is hold, 2 fingers is attack, a circle in the air is wrap it up. Tallin looked at me. Oh, and last one, if you're unsure, say so. We'd rather shift for you than guess. No one's keeping score on pride out there. Got it, I said. Good, Mina said, easy as a shrug. We'll talk you through the first few. After that it'll feel like learning to ride a hoverbike. We'll walk with you to the entrance after we run a small delivery. Never learned that one, I said dryly. Before we go, Jas said, pointing his chin at the nearest glass plate. You should at least see what alive looks like so you know what not to do if yours ever slips on. I gave him a look. He pulled his eyes off the plate and met mine. Not to gawk, he said. To learn. That's all. Quick, I said. He brought up a public feed with his tag and let it float between us. A team of 4 walked a shoulder-wide tunnel with water to the ankle. Their lens sat steady at collar height. No music. No commentary. Just breath, boot noise. When they met a lavamite cluster, the front set a shield against the wall, the archer behind him loosing arrows that split into multiples piercing the mites in batches and the others waited. It was work, not theater. When they were through, they marked the wall with a chalk shape and the feed title ticked a small number for map progress. That's enough, I growled. Jas closed it. We ran the delivery, sealed note to the conservator, and walked with the afternoon crowd until the road turned toward the north works. The entrance sat in a low cut against the hill with a standing frame of steel and stone around it. Lenses watched the entrance. A guard checked names against a slate when crews went in. A line of water ran out along a shallow trench and steamed at the edge where air hit it. A board on a post to the side read, "Today, heat index moderate. Gas watch. Drift 2 sealed." There were chalk marks on the stones from a week of cruise. "You'll always find a board like that," Tallin said. "Crews add notes. The conservator keeps it. If a drift is sealed, it's sealed. You open one without a contract and the town will come for you." "Understood," I said. We didn't go in, not at first. We stood and watched, allowing me to think it over and watch the coming flow of in and out traffic from the entrance. The town breathed around us. I could feel the sea pulling at the air where the streets opened east. "Straight enough," I said finally. "We can do a shallow run just to test it and be home before the night falls." "No need to prove anything," Mara said. Chapter 24. I said I would go. Not for a promise. I said it because I had been through worse while owned by men who called me by numbers and I wanted to see what it felt like to put my feet where I chose. We stood a while longer at the north mouth while crews came and went. The guard with the slate slid a finger under each name and made sure the sum of us matched the count when we went in. The board beside him had today's plain advice burned into it. Heat index, moderate. Gas watch, likely. Sealed, drift 2. Mara put 2 fingers to the left side of my chest where my recorder sat pinned. "Local record on," she said. "No broadcast." It was not a question. "On," I said. The little plate on my strap showed a blue eye and then went steady. The overlay ghosted along the bottom edge of my sight when I blinked for it. 6 marks for 6 buddies. No numbers yet, Just names and facing cones and a soft pulse that said we were close. "Rear," Talon said. "Like we talked." "Rear," I said back. We stepped inside and the light simply dimmed, the entrance glare dropped behind us. The first hall had been cut by biomachines that had preferred order. The floor was paved with broad slabs that looked like vitrified ash. They were not polished but they were solid and unyielding. The walls stood plumb and wore a skim of white where the rhizal threads ran, fine as hair, thick as twine in places, all of it under a skin that looked like plaster and wasn't. Now and then the threads brightened and dimmed with a pulse. Lenses the size of a fingernail sat in little brackets where wall met ceiling. They made small adjustments by degrees. The light in the hall came from a long strip duct in the crown where the walls turned to the ceiling, a steady amber that neither flickered nor hummed. "It's a city built inside the hill," I said without really meaning to. "A city built by a fungal gardener," Nara said. "Follow the main lines. The system lays them along lines of stress so the rock doesn't fall on our heads." We moved the way we had said we would. Talon set the pace solid and slow. The spear rode easy in Mina's hand with the point lowered. Jas walked just off her elbow with the net bunched against his hip, weights quiet. Mara's hands were loose. Nara ranged near the front where light turned corners first. I took the rear and watched our trail. It felt odd because it was easy. The first turn gave us a ramp, not steep, made from the same vitrified slabs. Heat rose in little breaths from cracks where old rock met new. Far down the hall a vent sang a soft kettle note. Mara lifted her palm once and we stopped. Steam shouldered out from a slit at knee-height and breathed across the slab and was gone. No need to run. No need to jump. We let it spend itself. Then we went. Compared to what I had gone through on Chandurax, it left me know how easy and not deadly this was. Was that a good thing or a bad thing? The worked hall gave to a throat that had been melted rather than cut. The floor lost its straight lines. The walls had glass in them where fire had licked, frozen in ripples. Threads ran there too, white etched in black, like roots caught in obsidian. This was the first place that had the smell of fire and old sulfur faint at first, then more, never a stench, just a fact. That did not stop Jas from complaining. "Ew, it smells like eggs." We met the first thing with teeth where the floor held water in a shallow lace. It moved like a ribbon, segmented with a maw for a face. It tasted the tread of our steps with a tongue the length of my hand. "Skitter eel," Mina said under her breath. "It's rare to see one so high up and it's just a baby." Nara didn't count. They didn't need to. They just laid the bolas low, quiet, and when the eel tried to slide from the throw the weights took it around the middle and the cord bit. It turned on itself with a suddenness that would have unstrung a careless hand. Talon pinned it with his heel where neck met body and let his weight do the work a second before his knife did the rest. The water wrinkled and smoothed. Jas had a jar ready with the eagerness of a boy. Nara shook their head. "Don't bother. The core's bound to be too small to be of any worth. We just saved some noobs from that thing. If it had lived long enough it would give a starting party a lot of trouble on this floor." Jas put the jar away without sulking. We walked for a long time. The easy kind of long where the body has not run a debt yet and can tolerate its own heat and the heat of the environment. The squared walls gave way to a circular bore, the rock glassy from ancient heat. We crossed a run of timber where the floor had been soft, a pit of mud who knows how deep. The timber creaked in a friendly way and then was quiet. Someone had laid new boards recently and wedged them with stone. The fork open the braces still held, but the heat carried a chitter that didn't belong to settling stone. Red moved at the edge of the glow. 6 bodies. Maybe more behind them. Fire ants. Not the baby from before. These came up in rank. Their plates were darker, brick turned to slag, and every joint glowed faintly as if heat lived inside the seam. A kind of dust sifted from them when they moved, ash fine and bitter enough that Mina was already wrapping her face cloth. "Pull or pass?" Jas asked, too loud. "Too many to slip," Mara said. Her shield was already up. "We take them. Hold the lane." The group fell into shape without speaking. Talon planted his boots where the floor leveled and brought his shield forward, axe tied against it. Mina braced her spear behind him, tip set to meet whatever slipped. Jas took the flank, throwing hand already spinning a weighted net. Mara anchored the rear with me, mace out weaving an enchantment to buff Talon. That left me. I tasted the weight in my chest and let it climb the throat. The apogee lament started low, a tone the ants didn't care about until the effect made their steps falter. On me, Talon barked. His shield rang when the first ant struck, the impact heavy enough to stagger a lesser man. He didn't give ground. The axe came down, caught the joint, and fire hissed from the wound. Mina drove her spear into the second ant's thorax. The tip sank, but the thing kept pushing, legs clawing at the floor. She leaned with it, boot braced, until Jace's weighted throw took 2 legs and dropped it sideways. She finished it with a thrust through the glowing seam. The third ant climbed the wall and came down at the line from above. Nara's bullet met it mid-descent from a gun I didn't know they had. The gun was a smoking flintlock. The bullet merely slowed the ant, but it was enough that Talon's shield caught the bulk. Mina stabbed, missed, stabbed again. Heat spat back, searing the rim of her sleeve. She cursed, shoved, and the ant collapsed, twitching. "Ads," Mara called. 2 more came up from the catchment, drawn by sound and heat. Jas swore, grabbed another weight, and missed his first throw. The ant kept coming. Talon shifted, and that shift left a gap. The ant lunged for me. My cinder flame note flared sharp. My tone carried, a heat-in note carried in vibration. It hit the incoming ant head-on with a ringing sound. That was enough. Mara bashed it at the neck seam, 1 clean strike. The last pressed Mina hard, legs hammering her spear aside. Talon tried to cover, but his shield was already full with the one still clawing him. She lost ground. For a moment I thought we'd lose her. Then Jas, a reckless fool, closed inside the reach and drove a dagger into the ant's joint seam with both hands. The handle scorched black as the heat vented, but it fell still. Jas shook his burned hand, grinning like an idiot, alive. With the defeat of the fire ants came the first real celebration. Mina leaned her spear against the wall and crouched low, knife out, cutting with the care of someone who had ruined plenty of harvests before learning the right way. The chitin gave with a crack. A thin red sac clung to the thorax seam, pulsing faintly with heat. "Low grade, but enough to sell," she said, voice even. Jas was already digging into another body, his burned hand wrapped in cloth. He held up a fragment of hardened resin that shimmered faintly. "Monster essence. Gather enough and they really start to pad your pocket." The chorus in my ear thrummed while Mina dropped the sack into her pouch. "You gain 120 experience, then again. Plus 95 experience, a run of tones, pure and clean, layered one after another until my vision ghosted a thin blue edge and then settled. I hadn't felt gains like this before. Chandurax had made me fight for scraps and claw for single points. Here, a half-dozen ants dropped more weight into my bones than weeks of brawling under burning sun. It was absurd. Ridiculous. And everyone else was smiling. Talon leaned against his shield, axe still black with cooked ichor. "Good work," he said. Plain words, but he said them like victory. Jas grinned wide, pouch already clinking. "If the whole floor pays out like this, we'll be rich by turn-in." I stared past them at the heap of bodies cooling against the stone. It didn't sit right. Why chase death when they had good lives to spend outside? Lanterns, markets, meals with names written on the walls of inns. Not orders barked by overseers. Not pits slick with blood. They were willing, eager, to throw it all on a dice roll against monsters that had no grudge against them. My hands shook with the echo of the chorus, but it wasn't from joy. It was the 1,000-yard stare again. I let them laugh. I didn't join. We moved on lighter than before, boots quicker, voices freer. Jas told a story about a brewer who claimed he could make fire ant sacks ferment into something drinkable. Mina laughed. Even Nara, quietest of us, offered a correction about the size of sacks worth keeping. The rhythm of people who thought fortune smiled. It would take some getting used to. The lane widened without warning. One moment we were moving shoulder close, the next the ceiling threw itself upward into a vaulted space where the light was not ours. Brass lanterns still burned in their brackets, but the true glow came from the walls themselves. They had gone translucent, veins of glass and fungus braided together until they shone like embers trapped under skin. Heat pushed at us in gentle waves, not painful but constant, the sort of heat that asks the body to pay attention. Nara touched one of the walls with their gloved hand and drew it back quick. "Resource vein," they said. White threads ran through the glass in complex knots, beads forming where they bulged. "Fungal aluminum. Can be split and smelted. Self-renewing. Don't touch it bare or it eats oil straight from your skin." The room had been cut square once, but time and system growth had rounded the corners. A half-collapsed colonnade ran the length, stone turned to slag mid-pillar where some eruption had passed through. Shapes stood frozen in the meld, what looked like benches, maybe, or the remnants of a place where men had sat once. My eyes tried to see order in them and failed. Mina only said, "Old mycelium work. Modeled after pre-human contact." Raisal conservators claim these dungeons started as their hives before our network took over. Past the chamber, the path collapsed again into a choke, narrower than 2 shoulders, walls black and ridged where lava had once boiled against mold. Threads crawled across the rock, forming not just veins but patterns, arches, spirals, knots. Decoration or circuitry, I couldn't tell. The glow behind them pulsed slow, like a heartbeat with no body to own it. Symbiotic growth, Mara said, half to me. Varnoth runs its planets like these the way other core strip mine. The system raises the resource, keeps it sustainable, then turns over the take-it quota. Efficient. Humane, they say. Better than strip mining it in one go. Humane? The word didn't sit right in my mouth. Compared to cracking the crust and letting half the biosphere suffocate, yes, she said. Her voice stayed level, not defensive. Just fact. On Varnoth worlds, the dungeon does the work collecting the resources. Then you farm it instead of destroying it. Safer for civilians. Safer for planets. We passed into another open span, this one circular, the roof a dome of vitrified stone like frozen smoke. In the center rose a mound, fungal, half petrified, half living, its roots sunk into cracks that no human hand had made. The roots pulsed with faint firelight, throwing shadows against the dome like ribs. Jas whistled low. Looks like a throne room. Nara shook their head. Not a throne. A growth node. It's like a dungeon server room. Tall and spat, quiet but sharp. Don't linger. Areas like the Straw Guardians. The system prefers to keep us away. We moved on, and the passages closed again, shouldering us one by one through cracks where heat and fungus had learned to live together. Steam drifted in threads. Black mold curled back from the heat, leaving only scorched patterns like writing no one alive could read. Every room, every choke, every vein told the same story. The dungeon wasn't just stone with monsters seated inside. It was an engine, alive in ways men only pretended to understand. A compromise between what the planet wanted to be and what Varnoth Corp wanted to take. And we were only at the surface. Mina stopped at a section of wall where the threads thickened into swollen beads, amber bright with liquid fire inside. They pulsed faintly, each one no bigger than a clenched fist, nested in glass like gems in setting. Fire nectar, she said, setting down her spear. Dangerous, but worth the wait. Tall and grunted approval and set a shield between her and the lane. Nara stood to cover the angles, gun balanced at hip, silent. Jas leaned forward like a crow ready to snatch whatever fell. Mina drew a hooked chisel from her pouch. She braced one hand against the stone and worked the point onto the bead. A crack of heat hissed out when she levered, sharp enough to sting my face even from a step away. The bead came free slick and hot, glowing in her glove like it wanted to eat through. "Keep it upright," she muttered. She set it into a clay vial lined with grey powder. The vial hissed, powder binding the fire, and the glow dulled to an ember. The chorus rang, "Loot, fire nectar ×1." She worked 3 more, fast but careful. Each time, the wall sealed itself almost as soon as she lifted the bead. Threads crept back across the wound, weaving until only a faint scar remained. Within moments the scar itself was fading. "It grows back?" I asked. Mara nodded. "System tends the vein. Faster here, where the stress lines run heavy. That's the trade, better than fracking." Jace's eyes gleamed. "And it sells high. Fire nectar's the base for splash heals. Toss a vial in the thick of it and everyone in the spray picks up ticks. Or cooks alive if the distiller botches the cut," Mina said. She sealed the last vial and slotted it into her pack with a firm clap of leather. We moved on, but my eyes kept drifting back to the sealed scars in the wall. It wasn't natural. It wasn't mechanical either. It was a compromise between the two, and it unsettled me. Nara broke the silence with a shot. A crack of smoke and spark from her flintlock dropped a skitter eel that had been nosing the edge of the lane. The bullet shattered its skull, the body went still. I caught myself staring at the weapon again. Mara caught me watching and spoke as if reciting a field manual. "System tags it on the crossbow table. Size, effect range, rate of fire, it fits the profile. That's the balance point." Nara worked the lock without looking up. "Powder, shot, pan, prime. Calm, professional. Best of both worlds. Slower than a bow, but the punch carries farther. And you can slot the same enchants on the shot you'd put on bolts. Fire, frost, bleed. Whatever the system recognizes. It's just a gun," I said, almost baffled. "I thought they were ineffective." "It's a Corsair's weapon," Mara corrected, her tone flat. "Class requirements and all that, like we said, they work sometime, but try to pick up a submachine gun as Bard and you'll do nothing. That's all it is. Nothing fancy. Just roll fit." The eel's twitching slowed, then stopped. Jas stooped to check for a core, already thinking of credits. Mina didn't pause, spirit ready. Talon shifted the weight of his shield and kept walking. The weapon wasn't a novelty to them. Just another tool in the spread of system-approved choices. Nara broke the quiet themselves, as if they'd read the question off my face. Corsair runs middle ground, they said, voice steady. Not built to match a ranger's draw speed, not built to take hits like a frontline. The kit pays out in buffs and shot effects. They tapped the barrel once. Any bullet can carry an enchant, same tables as bolts. Fire, frost, bleed, disruption. Makes me flexible when the line shifts. And the system recognizes damage over distance, so even if the pace is slower, the burst lands heavier. That in the buffs means I'm stuck only being effective with a large party. The lane opened again, not wide this time but broad enough for a body to rest without the walls pressing. A half circle of stone sat against one side, shaped like benches, as if the dungeon remembered people sitting here once. A water vein ran through a shallow trough, clean and cold enough that Mina filled skins without boiling. No lanterns, but the threads in the ceiling gave off a low glow, enough to see by. "It'll do," Mara said. She wasn't smiling, but her tone eased. It wasn't a designated checkpoint if there were such a thing in dungeons. Talon set his shield down against the wall with a grunt and stretched his shoulders. Camp. We settled quick, each in the pattern they'd drilled. Mina stacked packs against the wall to cut drafts. Jas spread a coil of cord in a half loop across the lane mouth, little bells tied at intervals. Nara cleared the far corner and crouched with their gun across their knees, flint checked twice. Camp as if ambush was certain. Watch rotation spoken low. No one argued. I sat with the elbow pipe resting across my knees, the overlay dimmed. No need to lift it, no need to breathe power into the notes. The chorus stayed quiet. For once, it felt like it was only ours, the breath of the group, the sound of water, the scrape of boots against stone. Jas, ever the one to fill silence, whispered, "Going well, isn't it? First run and we're still alive, packs heavy." He tapped the pouch at his belt, full of essence and sack. Mina gave him a joking look, but her voice was softer than usual. "Don't jinx it." Mara leaned against the bench, arms folded. "We made a clean camp. That's worth saying out loud. Tomorrow, we push. Deeper. Second floor. Looking for an unclaimed monster camp?" Talon asked, though he knew already. "Exactly." She nodded once. "A place with clean lines. No spawns in the back. 2, maybe 3 lanes for pullers to work. Space to kite if the run goes wrong. The kind of place you can hold a week if the loot's worth it." Nara didn't look up from their weapon. "And the kind of place worth defending if another crew tries to muscle in." No one answered that, but the silence was an answer itself. I blinked hard, sure I'd misheard. "Wait, did you say spawns?" No one looked up at first. They were just cleaning weapons, laying out cloth, making the small motions of people who expected tomorrow to come. The word echoed in my head anyway, jagged and impossible. Spawns. Respawns. That wasn't chance. My hands tightened on the elbow pipe. This was insane. This was just like the MMOs Jason used to play back when I still thought time was mine to waste. I hadn't said that part aloud, but it burned through me. Hadn't this life already been hell enough? Chandurax never gave us help. Never gave us fairness. Just pits slick with blood and men with whips shouting monikers instead of names. And here, monsters came back on a schedule like it was all a game board laid out for us. I felt my jaw clench until my teeth hurt. The Bureaucratica had kept this from us. Of course they had. Why let slaves know the universe could hand out rules, resets, rewards? Why let us see a world where strength wasn't stolen bone by bone, but earned in measured steps anyone could climb? It pissed me off more than I could hide. Mina must have noticed first. "You're grinding your pipe like it owes you credit," she said, not unkindly. "Something wrong?" Jas added, eyebrows high. "You look like you swallowed a torch." I shook my head too fast, but they were watching now. Mar didn't say anything, she never did unless it mattered, but the weight of her eyes was worse than words. "Come on, you can't tell us, buddy?" Jas said jokingly. Tolan's eyes flashed daggers at him, but I caught it. Something boiled up inside of me. I let some of it slip, more than I meant to. On Chandurax there weren't spawns. Just men making other men fight until one of them stopped moving. No loot, no system, no second chances. If you lost for good. And if you won. I swallowed hard. If you won, you just got thrown in again tomorrow. Silence stretched, close and uncomfortable. Only the water's trickle filled it. Talon broke it at last. "That explains your stare." His tone wasn't mocking, just flat, Like he'd been given a puzzle piece he didn't ask for but would keep anyway. No one pressed me after that, but the look said enough. I'd leaked more than I wanted. Chandurax wasn't a place they could picture, and I didn't want them to. I leaned back against the stone, closed my eyes, and tried to steady the pulse in my throat. The idea of spawns still spun there, impossible and infuriating. The system here was generous, almost absurd. On Chandurax, the gap between what was possible and what we were allowed had been a prison thicker than any wall. And I hated it more now, knowing it hadn't needed to be that way. Chapter 25. We woke, and the first thing that caught me was how quickly the others shook off the weight of yesterday. They moved as if none of it had cost them anything, cleaning blades, tightening straps, checking their kit with the quiet rhythm of practiced habit. Not a word was spoken about how close Mina had come to being crushed under fire ant legs, or how Jace's hand was still red and raw from where the dagger had scorched. They carried themselves with a kind of calm I couldn't understand. It was not that they didn't know the risks, they knew, they simply didn't hold it close. They accepted death in the tunnels the way a man accepts the cost of bread. To me it was still strange, even wrong. I couldn't believe how easily they laughed over morning rations, how Jas still joked. On Chandurax we had never spoken about the chance of death. We lived in it, breathed it. It was never tomorrow, it was always today. Here, they treated it like just another part of the ledger, a line item to balance against loot and experience. We shouldered our packs and set off, moving deeper. The path sloped down, the air heating by slow degrees until even I could taste the change on my tongue. The environment itself was shifting, not in any sudden way, but step by step, walls growing darker, glass veins running thicker, heat pressing through from seams below. The easy lanes of the first floor were being traded for something tighter, hotter, more insistent. I asked the question when the floor underfoot changed to something closer to vitrified slag than cut slab. So this is it then? Second floor? Jas grinned at me, young enough that his face hadn't lost its softness, and winked. Not quite, he said. He left the silence after that, let it hang the way he did when he wanted someone else to bite. Talon filled it. His voice was measured, low, but steady enough that it cut through the sound of boots and the occasional hiss of venting steam. The system doesn't mark floors with signs. It marks them with bosses. You don't descend until the floor boss dies. The tunnels we're in now? He gestured with his axe toward the shifting walls, where heat made the threads glow faintly red through the dark glass. This is the lair. A transitional space. It's the boss floor, Talon continued, not looking at me, eyes scanning the path as he walked. The descent opens when the thing tied to this floor dies. Until then, you're in its house, whether it's sleeping or moving. Every dungeon has its own rhythm. Falmore's first boss sits here. When we kill it, we'll find the shaft down. And if you don't? I asked. He shrugged. Then you rot here with the bones of everyone else who tried and failed. The words sat heavy in the heat. I thought of the camps we'd passed, the chalk tallies. The idea that all of this, the corridors, the veins, the rooms that looked like shrines to dead civilizations, wasn't a change of floor at all but just the waiting room for some monster? It twisted my gut. We pressed on. The rumbling came first. Low, faint, like distant thunder muffled through stone. At first I thought it was another vent preparing to cough steam. But then it grew, rolling through the ground, making my teeth buzz against each other. The walls shifted in the light. Heat built in the glass veins, flowing faster, pulsing until they glowed bright as forged lines. The group went still. Mar's eyes narrowed. Mina tightened her grip on the spear. Jas quit joking. Even Nara lowered her head, watching the ceiling like a hunter waiting for the snap of a trap. The rumble built into a roar. Down, Talon shouted, shield lifting before I even knew what I was reacting to. The ground beneath us erupted. A column of molten rock tore through the slag floor, hurling shards in every direction. A body followed it, long and writhing, armored in black stone that dripped with fire. A skitter eel, but monstrous, wreathed in lava, its body steaming where it touched the ceiling. It screamed, not with a mouth, but with the tearing sound of stone melting, the walls themselves crying as they gave way. It struck the ceiling and vanished upward, tunneling as easily as a snake through sand. The group jumped to their feet. Boss! Talon barked, as if naming it could steady the ground. Mara didn't hesitate. Move. We can't fight it here. We ran. The tunnel pitched and shuddered under our boots as the eel tunneled above and below, its heat melting seams and sending drips of slag down on our shoulders. The air grew thick, each breath a fight against fire. The tunnel widened at last, opening into a cavern I hadn't expected. It was not natural. It was a city. The ruins of mycelium civilization rose in front of us, vast columns of petrified fungus carved into the shapes of buildings, bridges, walkways suspended overhead. Half collapsed, half still standing, all of it glowing faint with the pulse of heat that ran through the roots. It might once have been beautiful. Now it was a maze, and the eel was its master. We filed in, instinct snapping us into position. Talon at the front, shield raised, axe at the ready. Mina just behind, spear poised to strike when he opened a gap. Jas to the flank, net coiled. Nara hung back, gun primed, the faint shimmer of enchantment etched into her bullets. Mara circled, eyes sharp, sword ready to punish any misstep. I took my place at the rear, elbow pipe in hand, breath already catching with the weight of song I hadn't yet released. The rumbling grew again. The eel shot down from the ceiling, body wreathed in molten fire, smashing through one of the great columns as if it were no more than ash. The collapse shook the cavern. Dust and glowing motes filled the air. I braced the elbow pipe along my forearm and drove the note from my chest, letting the metal carry it. The procession spilled out as a low, felt vibration more than sound, the afterwind rippling the air and making the eel's steps miss by a hair. Mina darted in with her spear, driving it into a seam between plates. Steam burst out, blinding hot, but she held her ground. Jace's net flew, weights clanging as they tangled. Nara's gun cracked, the bullet glowing faint blue as the enchantment triggered. It hit the eel's flank and burst with frost, steam boiling out as heat met cold. The monster shrieked, body coiling, fire spilling across the floor. I shifted, voice cracking into the dirge of unmaking. The tone carried, focused, a suppressive note that locked the eel's head for a heartbeat. Just long enough. Talon stepped in, axe raised, and brought it down into the joint. Leathery hot skin and stone split, fire vented, the eel thrashing so hard the floor itself cracked under it. Hum I name what was made, I weigh what was laid, I loose what was stayed, be unmade. Nail from the plank, thread from the seam, weight from the chain, break the dream. Bone from the oath, ink from the page, fire from the blade, cool the rage. It vanished again, tunneling through the wall, stone melting in its wake. We braced, the heat still lingering where it had been, waiting for the next strike. Spread. Mara ordered. Don't bunch up, it'll come from above or below. We split, each taking cover among the ruins. My breath came hard, sweat already soaking through the new clothes. I tightened my grip on the pipe. The rumble returned, closer this time. The eel tore out from under a half-collapsed arch, body half the width of the tunnel, glowing plates dripping lava. It lunged at me, jaws wide, heat baking the air. I struck the cinderfall note. A sharp, burning tone that lanced forward. The sound turned into heat, piercing through the eel's mouth, searing the soft tissue inside. It recoiled, shrieking, smashing through another column in its thrash. Mina pressed again, stabbing through the seam it had left open. Jas dove to the side, rolling out of the way as fire sprayed across the ground. Nara reloaded in calm, steady motions, firing another enchanted bullet into its flank. Frost burst again, slowing the molten flow across its plates. Talon didn't wait. He pressed forward, shield first, driving the eel back step by step until it smashed through another wall to retreat. I gasped for air, the echo of the note still burning in my throat. The chorus in my ear thrummed, tones layering, damaged tallies, party sync pulses. My body trembled from the strain, but the fight wasn't done. The eel circled, tunneling through the walls of the mycelium city, collapsing ruins as it moved. Dust and ash filled the air, choking and hot. Mara's voice cut through it. Hold formation. We find its rhythm, we break it here. And so we stood in the ruins, waiting for the next strike, ready to bleed everything we had into the fight. The rumble came back like a warning you only hear when it's already too late. Heat climbed the walls in slow waves, glass veins brightening until they threw red onto our faces. Dust and ash hung in the air and made the throat feel lined with grit. I braced the elbow pipe along my forearm and kept my stance wide. No one talked. We all listened to the floor. It hit behind us first, stone buckling, slag popping, a sound like a kiln being torn open. The eel burst up through the side of a fallen arch and flung molten rock across the plaza. Talon had the shield up before anyone else moved. The first spray slammed the bronze and ran in fat rivulets down the face of Talon's shield, smoking where it hit the floor. He drove a heel into the ground and held. Mina didn't wait for an order. She slid past his right shoulder and drove the spear under the lip of a plate. The point bit, but the eel twisted and the haft kicked back hard enough that it rang in her hands. She took the shock, set again, and stabbed again. Steam belched and ran along the floor like a low fog. Left. Left wall. Nara's voice was level, as if she were calling marks at a range. She'd already reprimed. The gun cracked and a line of frost spread along the eel's near flank. The heat boiled it off in seconds, but the plate shrank a fraction and left a seam Mina could work. Jas tried to follow with the net. The throw was good. The weight spun true. The eel jerked sidewise at the last instant and the leading ring glanced off a plate, rebounded, and the net collapsed short. One weight caught Mina's boot. She kicked free in time. Hold formation. Mara's voice cut clean through the heat and noise. Do not chase. The eel coiled, tail sweeping. The tail caught Talon across the right thigh with a thud I felt in my teeth. He took a half step back and the shield dropped an inch. The second sweep hit the top of the shield and smashed the rim into his helmet. He stayed on his feet, but I saw it, that half blink where man goes away and comes back to himself slower than he should. I drove the note up from the chest. The pipe took the vibration and gave it back to the room as pressure you could feel in the knees and wrists. Procession went out on a low wave, after wind spilling across broken stone and cooling slag. The eel's steps missed. Not by much. Enough. Mina's next thrust found the seam Nara had made and sank the first hand width, then two, before the eel whipped away and exploded down through the floor. The stone around the hole sloughed like wax. Silence took one breath. Two and I tasted copper and ash. Head count, Mara said. Up, Talon grunted, voice thick. He rolled his shoulder of his shield arm and set his feet again. Blood showed under the helmet rim in a thin line down his jaw. Up, Mina said, breath fast. She shook her right hand once to loosen it and shifted her grip on the spear. Up, Jas said, too bright. He reeled his net and checked the weights for slag. Up, Nara said. The flintlock was already at half cock. She had a second pouch open, rune shot stacked in a tidy roll like shocks. Up, I said. The chorus pulsed with small notices, contact, miss, heat, resist, each a thin tone in the air. It was almost calming in how cleanly it tallied the attempt to die. The rumble crawled under us again. It moved fast, then slow, then stopped. The eel was listening, too. Spread two lines, Mara said. Talon, anchor center. Mina, hover right. Nara, left, stagger aura on reload. Jas, hold your throw until I call it. We moved. It wasn't pretty. We stepped on chips that skittered. We bumped shoulders in the smoke. But we were where she wanted us when the floor bulged again and split. It came head first, mouth gaping, the heat rolling out of it like the breath from a blast furnace. I slammed the elbow pipe against the bone of my forearm and gave it the dirge of unmaking. The suppressive cord didn't sound so much as grab the air and hold it still. The eel's head checked, not a full stop, a hitch. Enough room for Talon to drive forward and pop the rim of his shield up under the chin. He didn't do it to hurt it, he did it to set the angle. The mouth stayed open. Mina punched the spear up and into the soft. The spear grated along teeth like black glass and then sank into meat. She put her whole weight behind it, legs braced wide, and screamed through her teeth. Jas threw. The net spread and took the eel's lower half. Weights spun fast and tangled. Two wrapped a leg. Another bit into a seam. The eel thrashed. The net tightened. The plate on its left flank tore and the spray fanned out on a hot sheet. It caught Jas across the chest and shoulder. He dropped with a noise I've only heard when men take a lash to already open flesh. Jas, Mina started. Keep the line, Mara snapped. I've got him. She was already moving, mace in a low guard, cutting close to Jas to put her body between him and the next sweep. She kicked his nettail out of the worst of the heat and dragged him by the back of his collar toward a rock for cover. The eel reversed, jammed the spear deeper into the ceiling, and vanished upward again. The spear ripped free of Mina's hands with a crack that left her with splinters pressed into the glove. She stumbled, caught herself, looked at me, then deliberately looked away and shook out her hand like she wasn't bitten to the bone. Status, Mara said, eyes never leaving the hole above. Jas is burned, she said herself, answering her own call. Non-lethal. She didn't say if we finished the fight fast. She didn't have to. The rumble moved to her right, then behind, then overhead. It's using the columns, Nara said. It's running the lengths inside them. How do you know? I asked. They didn't answer with words. The gun fired. The shot hit an intact pillar and went through the face like it was paper. Frost blew out from the exit hole 20 feet higher in a ring. The pillar quivered. Because the inside is hollow, she said. Trap it, I said, before I knew I was going to say anything. We make the chance. Talon, take the opening. Mina, bait the interior. Jas, I looked to where Mara had left him. He was sitting up now, teeth bared, breath scribing quick white tracks in the ash dust. His burns were ugly but not deep. Double net on my call. Low and then high. Nara, low disruption if you've got it. If it goes to dig, I want the shot in the hinge. Mara nodded. Do it. Now, I said. The eel reared halfway from the hole. Nara's shot snapped. The bullet didn't bloom frost this time. It spat a short, hard flare at the hinge behind the jaw. Disruption. The eel's mouth half closed on the reflex. The muscles stuttered. The body lost the sequence. I take the crow's book, I bleed out the ink, I weigh it with ash, let silence ring. I carry the fallen, I set them to light, I open the dawn, let silence ring. I took the beat the disruption bought and hammered the dirge of unmaking into the hinge. It wasn't elegant. It was force-modeled as pressure. The head locked for 2 heartbeats. Talon did not waste them. He stepped and smashed the rim of the shield into the joint again. The head rocked back. Mina slid in and drove the spare spearhead she carried at her belt, just the head, no haft now, into the joint like a wedge and hit it once with the heel of her hand. The wedge bit and held. "Hi," I yelled. Jace's second net arced up and over, perfect this time. The weights wrapped the upper body and tightened. The eel jerked. The wedge held. For a blink, longer than any of us had been allowed so far, it was stuck. I gave the Cinderfall note everything the lungs would give. It wasn't a line now, it was a punch. He'd hit the hinge through the wedge and burned the muscle from the inside. The smell was bad enough I won't name it. The eel spasmed and tore backward, lost its grip on the inside face of the column, and fell out into open air for the first time. Go. Mara's shout came. We went. Talon crashed into the side of its head and chopped down with the axe as if he were felling a stubborn tree. Stone plate dished and cracked. Mina scrambled up the first ripple of its back, found purchase on a seam, and stabbed down. Nara tossed the gun to her offhand, pulled a stubby tube I hadn't seen them carry, and fired a slug of dead gray clay at the broken joint. The clay splashed, spread, and then went rigid for a heartbeat before the heat ate it. That heartbeat was worth a year. The eel slid, big as a boat, throwing fire. It slapped its tail and the tail hit Talon full across the ribs. The sound was wrong. He went sideways into a ruined stare and the air left him in a grunt like a man punched by a giant. He didn't get up. Hold the head, I shouted. Do not let it roll. We didn't hold the head. We survived the roll. It spun, body and heat and weight, and the spin knocked Mina from its back and bounced her across the floor. Her helmet rang against stone. She stopped moving. Jas threw himself low and dragged her out of the sweep by the strap of her cuirass. The sweep took him across the legs and I heard his knee pop. He yelled once, a short bright sound, and bit it off. Nara. I called. 2 shots, they said. They meant, I can give you 2 that matter. Make them count. I moved before I could think to be afraid. Lifting the gutter pipe in both hands like a club, and went for the head. The world narrowed to the hinge. To the way the plates met. To the small soft width inside the not soft. To the timing of breath and step and the feel of heat as a thing that had edges you could read. It followed, not with mind, with motion. It was used to making sense of the world in vibration. When I made the beat wrong, it put its head wrong to match. Now, I shouted. Nara's first shot hit the inside corner of the mouth where I was drawing it. Frost broke outward like a flower and made the soft air hard. The eel bit on ice. Teeth shattered. Heat took the rest in a hiss full of its own pain. Again, I said. I had no breath left to hide the cost. My hands shook on the downspout. Nara's second shot hit the hinge dead on. That one wasn't frost. It was disruption again, and the stutter it caused ran the length of the eel's neck and into the first quarter of its body. It went from fluid to stone for 2 heartbeats. I slammed the pipe into the creature and let the procession go so hard the world tilted. Afterwind took the eel and made its weight feel wrong. Frailty ran through it like a sickness granted by a song. Everything about it sagged. Up. Mara called, and she was already moving. She hit the hinge to ring it like a bell. Talon. He got up because she put her will into his name. He took one blind step, then another, put his shoulder into the shield and drove the edge home. The joint gave. The plate lifted. Mina came from low, half stumbling, and rammed her spear through the gap. She screamed as she did it because her ribs were telling her not to. The point punched through flesh and found the other side and stuck in stone. Hold, I said, because I could feel us about to shatter. The eel tried to dig. The front claws hit the floor and the heat flared and the slag went soft and its head began to go down. The spear bent. Mina's arms shook so hard the spear hummed. If one cannot stand, we lend them an E. If one cannot speak, Let ours be the plea. No one goes under, not while we see. Wake for the broken, candle and rope. Raise up the bell rope, pull on the line. Signal the living, now is the time. Dawn is a promise we hammer and stoke. Wake for the broken, candle and rope. When grief is a storm and mercy is thin. Circle grows tight, we gather them in. Price turns to nothing, shame into cloak. Wake for the broken, gather the rope. The wake for the broken in a tone that tasted of iron. It didn't heal skin. It didn't knit bone. It gave breath back for 4 counts and made hands forget they were tired. It took my legs and swapped the shaking for a steadier tremble. Wake for the broken, active, plus rally, plus stamina pulse. The eel lunged despite everything we were throwing at it. The spear screamed and warped. The hinge nearly shut. I had one tool left that would turn the math, and I had not wanted to use it here. Root boon, survivor's dilemma, keep, active, 600s, resolve +2, grit +2, damage reduction +20%, regeneration +25%, immunity, fear/stagger, afterwinds, baseline severity applied, +15% enemy frailty. The world settled. The edge came off the heat. The shaking stopped for me, and only me. I put my hands where they needed to be and made the air do what I told it. Hold, I said again, and this time it wasn't a plea. It was an instruction. Jas, high weight to mean as haft. Now. He slid, half-crawled, and clipped a bundle of net weights to the spear mid-shaft. The extra weight changed the arc. The next time the eel tried to close, the spear bent into the new curve but bit deeper. The hinge screamed. I struck with the gutter pipe, not to damage, though I did, but to keep the wrong beat going. Talon, undercut, I said. Left. He did what I commanded as if he were back on a drill square. He shifted his grip on the axe and carved up into the joint instead of down. The edge found a tendon. It parted. The head dropped 2 more inches. Nara was already out of shot that mattered. They pulled a knife and went for the seam just under the joint and drove it in as if sewing sailcloth with a spike. Mara saw the open and committed in a way that was the pinnacle of calculation. She stepped onto the eel's snout, let it take her weight, and put her mace into the eel's eye in a straight, quiet motion. Heat ran up the mace and into the hilt and bit her hand. She held. The steel went soft at the very end and bent. The eye collapsed. The eel convulsed. The convulsion ran the length of it and shook the plaza. Columns fell. A bridge gave up and came down in a curtain of stone and dust. The eel's tail shot up and hammered the ceiling and the ceiling sagged. The head thrashed and tried to close on the ruined eye and failed. Finish it, I said, and for a moment I thought I was on Chandurax because it sounded like a handler's order. I took one last breath, found what I had left, and poured it into a final cinderfall note. Not a scream. A strike. Heat and pierce in the same line. It went in through the melted eye and ran the length of the brain space behind it and out the other side into stone. The sound it made when it hit the rock was small and correct. The eel stopped. I stood very still and let the root boon do what it promised. The edges of the world were clean and bright. The heaviness in my legs was gone. Fear was far away as if it had been someone else's name. I felt strong in a way that made me dislike myself, and I knew I had 10 minutes of it and then the price due for a day. Boss defeated, Ember Skitter of Falmore, Floor I, you gain 2,450 experience. Party experience distributed. Loot window available to party, Ember Core, Greater, Melted Carapace ×3, Obsidian Tooth ×5, Ember Gland ×1, Boss Signet, Basalt Helix, Floor Descent Key. The floor shuddered once, not hard. A seam opened where the plaza met the far wall and a slab slid aside to show a shaft down. Cool air moved up from it with a smell like stone that had not yet learned heat. Threads along the mouth brightened and set a gentle light down the throat.